But this man shows us how to deal with a bad hand. And tonight, y'all, I want to learn from this man. I don't know his name, y'all. I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but I'm so glad to know that I don't need to know his name to know the name of the man that dealt with his bad hand. Oh God, I'm going too fast. I'm so glad to know that I don't need to know everything about you to know that the God I serve is able to deal with your bad hand. I'm so glad to know that you ain't got to sit down and tell me all your business to know that the same God I serve, whether you from uptown or downtown, whether you from the West Bank or the East Bank, whether you've been to Yale or you just got out of jail, I'm so glad to know whether you got a whole lot of money or no money at all, that just like God did it for that one, he's able to do it for this one. I'm so glad to know that God is no respecter of person. All you got to do, I feel like preaching already, is believe that he's able, and God will work it out. Look at the text, y'all. Look at the text because the text shows us how to deal with a withered hand. The first thing that's very interesting is that if I'm going to stretch it out tonight, if I'm going to stretch it out, the reality is I got to stretch it out in the right place. It's right there in the text. I got to stretch it out in the right place. And I know where you're going. You say, preacher, it's in there. He was in church. And that would be the easy preach. It would really be the easy preach. Matter of fact, I got to tell you, I've taken that route before. But in doing some study, I also saw that Matthew, along with Mark, and even Luke gives us the same account of this situation. But they all show us, with the exception of Mark, is that this man, or Jesus rather, before going into the synagogue, where this man had just left the temple with the Pharisees and the disciples. And you got to understand, because I've learned now to read and to appreciate the word of God for what it is. And I wanted to know, why would the text say, in the sister text of these particular verses, why would the text say that they went from the temple into the synagogue? That's very important, y'all. It's because in the temple there, or rather the difference is that there is a difference between the temple and the synagogue. The temple was where the priest ran everything. But in the synagogue, the rabbi ran everything. In the temple, they worshipped. But in the synagogue, they learned. In the temple, they made sacrifice. But in the synagogue, they were students. In the temple, they worshiped and lifted up God for being who he was. But in the synagogue, they had to learn who God was in order to go in the temple to lift him up for who he was. And God had to show me just last night that a whole lot of us want to spend time in the temple, but don't want to spend time in the synagogue. And every now and then, God will give you a bad hand so that you can sit them think that he wanted them to get in church. Matter of fact, it goes even deeper than that, because this teaching was not just, and I'll get to that in a minute, because this teaching wasn't just for the man with the withered hand. I told you it just came out of the temple. And when they were in the temple, there was an argument between Jesus and the Pharisees, because they wanted, or they had a problem rather, with the disciples eating the unleavened bread on the Sabbath day. And so they began to argue with Jesus about whether or not they should be eating or working on the Sabbath. And Jesus now wants to take the literal lesson and manifest it in a life situation. God Almighty. And can I suggest to you tonight that you are God's lesson plan? Can I tell you that God says, I'm going to use you to teach somebody else a lesson? God, are you telling me I'm going through what I'm going through for somebody else? Yes, I am. Can I suggest that maybe your bad hand may not even be for you? It's for the folk around you, so that God can teach somebody else what he's trying to let them know. That's why you got to make sure you do the right thing when you got a bad hand, because if you do the wrong thing, then you're going to give out the wrong lesson, and a whole lot of us make foolish decisions, and we don't understand that God is using our mess to minister to somebody else. So then the man was in the right place, because he wasn't just in church. Because again, I told you that's the easy preach, but I've learned now that everybody that come to church don't come to deal with their bad hand. I've learned that some folk are comfortable in crazy situations. They have gotten so accustomed to their hand being withered, drawn, and dead that they have now adapted to their disability. There's some of us that are comfortable being ignorant. We okay with not knowing the word. We okay with not being strong enough to pray. We okay as long as they know how to do it. I'm okay as long as they know how to do it. No, we ought to always be hungry to go into the synagogue, to sit down at the feet of the rabbi, to sit down at the feet of the master, and learn more about him. And so that brings me to my second point. Because if I'm going to stretch it out, not only do I need to bring it to the right place, but I need to make sure I bring it to the right person. For this man really does not know that he is a part of the lesson plan of Jesus. But because of the omniscience of God and how miraculous Jesus is, he allows this man's situation to be brought front and center, and this man brings his situation to Jesus. And I stop by to tell somebody tonight that if you're going to deal with your bad hand, and if you're going to stretch it out, then you have to learn how to bring that problem to Jesus. See, because a whole lot of us, we do go and get the information, but all we become are encyclopedias or dictionaries. You know, all they have sitting in the library is a whole lot of information, but if you never take the information and make it application, then nothing can be produced. And so then a whole lot of us come here, get what we need, but because we don't ever bring it to Jesus or bring our situation to Jesus, there can never be any productivity in our dead situation. Can I tell you, you got to stop bringing your problems to the wrong people? Can I tell you, you got to stop bringing your problems to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and the Let's Barbecue and the Crawfish Bar? You got to stop putting all your stuff out there for everybody else to get there. I don't care what you think about my problem. Truth is, if you were me, himself at the mercy of the elders of the church. He could have literally become a welfare case. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But instead of him being dependent on the